critics feel he's a political engineering marvel in reverse. A complex machine switching between irregular motion and incomprehensible stagnation. A monumental appliance constantly emitting mixed signals, and a man whose politics and style can both confound and frustrate. But his admirers love his capacity for the unpredictable and the unknown. Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka is his name, and he features here tonight as a running mate, a presidential aspirant, and a mystery. Martha Karua and Rigathi Gachagua headline our week of heady political events. The two major political formations have named the two as their respective deputy presidential candidates. What will they mean for the fortunes of Raila Odinga and William Ruto? It is literally our central question tonight. On my take, I don't believe those politicians who sign documents don't actually read them. And on Jamila's memo, she celebrates the beautiful spirit of Kenyans. And on the punchline, Gashuri issues an alert to every running mate, especially those in the governor races. And on the kicker, Kai opens the asset recovery window to reveal a growing crowd of national gluttons. The news gang goes to work right now.
Cometh the hour, cometh the lady. I have the great honor to announce that I have picked as my running mate and Cabinet Secretary for Justice and Constitutional Affairs, the Honorable Martha Wangari Karua.
I present to you the Kenya Kwanza running mate candidate, my brother and friend, Rigathi Gachagua. That good Kenyan, my friend, whom I have worked with, especially on the economic model that now has famously been referred to the bottom-up economic model.
And indeed, what a week it has been. Welcome to News Gang, everybody. The hashtag is News Gang at Citizen TV Kenya. We're looking forward to your views on our conversation tonight. Lady, gentlemen, never before, I would say, perhaps in this country, has there even been a race for a running mate, or has it been so consequential, or one that has drawn so much attention, than for this race? Linus, why is that?
Because the Constitution of Kenya 2010 is opening the spaces every day. When the Constitution of Kenya 2010 was promulgated on the 27th of August 2010, I don't think Kenyans really appreciated what it would end up meaning. And what we see almost on a daily basis is the manifestation of the possibilities of the Constitution of Kenya 2010. It introduced a uniquely special position of running mate. Remember, the Constitution of Kenya 2010 tried as much as possible to run away from the previous political dispensation that made the position of vice president a position of whimsical wills of the president. In those days, the vice president served at the president's pleasure. Under the current Constitution of Kenya 2010, the deputy president starts off as a running mate. Basically, that is the person that, together with the president or presidential candidate, they shape the race. So it's a duality of a ticket. This is the first time that actually second time, but I want to say first time in terms of the intensity of the attention that has been given to the duality of the ticket. That candidates are being looked at as presidential candidate and running mate and one ticket. That's exactly what's happening this time. And you saw the intense fight, the intense campaigning for the position of running mate.
Complete with interviews.
Absolutely.
Job interviews, you'd say.
Yes. I think in the last show we said it was as intense as that of presidential candidates as well. Because there was a lot of lobbying on both sides, there was intense lobbying, if you can call it that. And in the end, as we are going to talk about, two candidates emerged, and This is only because we're talking about the two main formations,
Yeah.
Azimio la Umoja of Raila Odinga
Yeah.
and Kenya Kwanza of William Ruto.
That's right. Jamila, I see you nodding your head.
Yeah.
So.
I'm nodding because I agree with Linus. I think also in 2013, I don't think anyone had realized how important this DP presidential ticket being elected together would be, because that was the first time. And of course 2017 we had Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto running a second time. I don't think we realized it then, but then now I think the importance, as Lina said, imewadhihirikia, we can say that in Kiswahili.
Yeah.
I think that's why also you see when Raila Odinga was naming Martha Karua and when William Ruto was naming Rigathi Gachagua, they even gave roles, defined them almost clearly because of two different reasons, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Of course, William Ruto's reasons were saki naibu wangu ahangaishwe ama ateswe kama mimi nilivyoteswa, and for Raila Odinga it was nataka naibu wa rais mwenye anafuata maagizo ambaye anamsikiza mkubwa wake. Exactly. So, but then Yvonne, before you, I know you want to play sound,
because I wanted us to get into now Martha Karua and get an understanding of who she is and why she is. But carry on.
If I just, before we do that, I think Yvonne, we also realize the importance of running mate. Let's say, for instance, like in the US, a running mate excites a ticket or can bring it down. And I think we are realizing that as a country now, considering the factors that are looked into in picking them. Martha Karua brings something unique, in my opinion, which is the first female who's been named by a major party. We've had several others before, I think two before. One named by Kalonzo Musyoka and James Ole Kiapi.
Yeah.
Kalonzo Musyoka had named, I remember Dr. Julia Ojambo.
Correct.
And then
But
James
that was
Ole
in
Kiapi.
the old
Yes.
Yes,
But this
yes.
one now, this is that's one.
She would be the second.
The second one,
yes.
exactly. So there are all these factors that have to be considered. Even remember with what happened in Kenya Kwanza, with what happened with Professor Kithure Kindiki, that he had been popular among them. But then now, whatever methods were used, having a panel, interviewing them, and then ultimately shortlisting and being picked, or having a 17-hour marathon meeting and then ultimately the party leader deciding who will be, this is different. It's not been seen before, but it shows you the importance of that ticket now.
Yeah. So let's
Yvonne.
talk about that ticket.
Yes, just before we do that,
Yeah.
if there is one pair that has raised the stake for the choice of a running mate, is the pair of President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto. How they have treated each other, how they have related, informed the rigorous search for a running mate for, let's say, the main coalitions in this race. There's some certain things that have happened in the tenure of President Uhuru Kenyatta and his deputy William Ruto that have informed the choices that have been made by Raila Odinga, by William Ruto, and even the other presidential aspirants, because we have 55 of them. And by the way, Wajakoya, Professor George, has nominated a woman, and several others have nominated
Carriera as well.
Even Carriera.
Yeah.
But for Bada, it is the first major political coalition, and arguably that you would say stands a chance of winning in this election. The same way, let's say, William Ruto's ticket is also in the run for the presidency. But how the president has related with his deputy, to some extent informed, or even say to a great extent informed, the choices that were made. The acrimony, especially in the second term, the competing political interest, especially in the second term, and the duality of the ticket, and the realization that you make one wrong choice and a relationship that does not work, you stay with it for the remainder of the term of 5 years. And that is intricate. And so you're going to likely see a scenario where you don't want somebody who you will be at loggerheads from the onset
start,
once you get
going
into the presidency.
And then Linus, so Azimio then settled for Martha. But I think it had been perhaps highly anticipated or looked highly likely from the beginning. And I dare say probably Kalonzo Musyoka announced that she was the candidate before that, but we'll get to Kalonzo in a moment. But this is Martha Karua now. What does she bring to this ticket?
Jeff put the question yesterday to a group of ladies who have been eminent ladies, we must say, and they were wondering whether that should be a question at all, because Martha Karua's career has been one of public commitment to great ideals, reforms, and Martha Karua's contribution to the second liberation especially. And we saw just a few days ago Kiraitu Murungi describing the pair as a union of liberators. Martha Karua has a very, very rich background in the history of human rights and political reforms in this country, and even constitutional reforms. And so what she has immediately done is to portray this ticket, the ticket of Raila Odinga and Martha Karua, as a reform-minded union of reformist kind of ticket. And we must mention here that it wasn't an easy process. Azimio la Umoja had a more difficult nomination exercise, brought out entirely by the fact that there were many leaders that had already congregated in this coalition. You had Martha Karua from the National Rainbow Coalition Kenya. You have Charity Ngilu from the NAC party as well. You have Kalonzo Musyoka from Wiper. You have a host, a number of, there's even Gideon Moi from Kenya.
Peter Munya.
Peter Munya, there is
Peter Kenneth.
Peter Kenneth. It's a galaxy, basically, if we can call it that, of many political players. The same problem was not prevalent on the other side because the number of high-profile leaders was not as high. So this was why the contest came to what it did. And of course, by picking Martha Karua, there was also an element of regional politics, that a regional card that Raila Odinga and the Azimio la Umoja team was looking at. Because you're looking at the Mount Kenya region, where Deputy President William Ruto and the Kenya Kwanza UDA team has made headway. It is perceived to be way ahead in terms of recognition from the people there. It's the party of choice at the moment there. And the one thing that the running mate choice had to address is exactly that, which explains why a day after her appointment, Martha Karua headed to the mountain.
Yeah, there's something you said about history, and I want us to talk about that a little bit more. And before we do that, let's listen to Raila Odinga, and he, went through her quite a bit of her history when he started off with the fact that she, was a magistrate at the age of 24. Let's listen to that, and we can come back and talk some more.
At the age of 24, this woman was appointed a magistrate to adjudicate on matters of men. A few years later, she became the youngest woman to be elected a member of parliament in central Kenya. And she went on to serve in the capacity for 20 years. Of these 20 years, she was a cabinet minister for 6 years, serving in different portfolios. The woman we offer as the proposed deputy president is also known to have incredible credentials in the fight for our second liberation.
All right, so he went through, her detailed history, and one of the things I wanted to ask Jamila, and Kiraitu said, like you said, a union of liberators. They were in the struggle for multipartism together. Does that history count for a majority of voters who are young and perhaps not very in touch with, that part of Kenya's history? I see Lina smiling already. But that's been the biggest, or one of the major selling points of this ticket, right? That these two were in the struggle for Kenya's liberation. But does that count? Does that matter? In today?
Yeah, I understand what you mean, Yvonne. Of course, it shows a friendship, a long-time friendship. They worked together in the past. They have this association, this belief in some of the same ideals. But I think for a majority of Kenyans, I think our recent population survey showed, I think over 70% of Kenyans are under the age of 35. Mm-hmm. And why do we vote as Kenyans? What are the reasons why we vote for a particular candidate or not? Is it to date, we've not had a manifesto from any of them, but I'm sure the number of people who know who they're going to vote for already, kuna wale wanajua. Whatever you say or do, come 9th of August, I'm going to vote in a particular candidate. Your manifesto notwithstanding and all that. For me, I think why this is important for the two of them, for Raila Odinga and Martha Karua, is to show that we are people who have worked together in the past, who have worked together through very difficult times in our history, who have come through it to the other side. Yes, there was a time when we were on different opposite sides, but we've come back together because we feel this country is more important than any of us, and we feel we can take it to the next stage. And history always is, I think those who understand our history and where we've come from, are actually able to see where they want to take us. They don't want to go back to where they were. They're looking at the future, like we don't want to go through what we did, and this is what brings us together. So the fact that we have things in common, they're the things that bring us together, I think is important. But whether or not people will vote for them because of that, I'm not so sure, Yvonne. A huge percentage of our population does not even remember the things that happened in 92 and 97 when there was the struggle for multipartyism and the second liberation.
I sense a rebuttal from Linus. I'll come back to you now.
Even from right here. I would say the young people, being young does not deny you the ability to understand history. I mean, these are people who are in school.
Not that they don't understand it.
They know.
Does it matter?
But
whether it matters.
It would. And there are various factors that will influence how they choose or the choice that they make at the ballot, particularly on the presidential seat. They may not have lived, they may not have been around in the country during the second liberation struggle, but they would understand, they would appreciate what is happening. But that is not the only reason that will make them choose for one candidate or the other. It is also the closeness to the ticket and the understanding of what a ticket brings to them. There are obviously other reasons other than the understanding of the ticket and how close they feel they are to it. There's also the question of mobilization of our votes. I mean, are you telling me that a young person in Region A will vote for this ticket or the other ticket because they understand the liberation struggle or not? Maybe not. There will be other factors like, oh, how was the mobilization done? Is it a regional issue? Is it also a feeling of this is the candidate who will address the issues that concern me? Is this a ticket that brings hope? So there are all manner of factors that will come at play. But the liberation story is part of this election, no doubt about it. There are those people who, there's a certain category of voters who will identify with that liberation struggle directly, one-on-one. And so they will make their choice based on that, just like there will be people who feel nothing about it. But over and above that, I am one of those people who are not very tempted to look at Martha Karua from a gender point of view. There's several other things that relate to her. Yes, gender factor is one of them, and there are people who feel probably they will vote for her based on that. But I think she's bigger than that. She's more than that in terms of what she brings to the table. People have said different things about her being resolute, her history in the civil society. There are people who will say quite a number of things about her. So it's not so much, for me, it's not so much a gender question, much as it is an important one, but more of what other factors she brings to the ticket.
Linus?
You see, this is the closest we've ever gotten as a country to getting a merit-based political ticket. We should put it that way, in the most honest way as we should. Because of the credentials of these two, Raila Odinga and Martha Karua are not just happening, they've not landed from somewhere to the political scene. And they also come up with one common thing that they share, and that is a zero history in the circles of graft. There is very little out there that anybody can complain about how they've made their wealth, about what they own, or whether they run tenders in government and things like that through their time in government, which makes this a sort of an issue-based approach to the election. And I think it's the first is a good first step for the country to start discussing merit-based tickets, where people can actually show that they have been out here for the public. They have been out there for others, not just themselves. And between the two, there is a very, very rich history. And you talk about the constitution making, you talk about the second liberation, which is the introduction of multipartyism. And then there is something else they are going to sell, which is this is the first time a big party, a major party, has a woman on the ticket, basically a step away from the presidency. So in a way, there'll be some really positive narratives going in the way of the Raila Odinga, Martha Karua ticket based on that. Now, you had earlier discussed a bit of the history and the perception that maybe the youth would feel,
nothing about it.
Nothing about it. I mean, we will not be part of perpetuation of ignorance, because in a few weeks' time, in a week or two, we'll be celebrating June 1st. None of those youth, none of us here was present when June 1st became a relevant day to our calendar as a country. Self-governance. And then after that, we'll do Heroes Day on October 20. And these are things we will do in perpetuity. Are you suggesting that there is a bunch of youth that are going to come that don't care about their history, that some of these dates will not mean anything? That is where we go wrong, and I think that's where people tend to trivialize political offices and political journeys. Merit counts. Merit should count for something. Doing things for the public out there should count for something. The people in the human rights space should be recognized for what they do. The people who fight for our spaces. You see, democracy is not tangible. It's not something you can take home. It's not an event. It's not an event, and it's not even the Constitution. Nobody can serve it for dinner at all.
That's why we speak of the spirit of the law.
Yes, which is why sometimes, and it gets me really sad to see sometimes people have done so much, and then you hear people casually dismissing them. Look at Reverend Joya, who is at home somewhere right now. He didn't take away anything, but he fought for this country. You don't want to have youth saying, he doesn't matter, we don't know his story. You don't want the youth telling you, oh, they don't know about Mekatilili or Menza. This wave of ignorance must be arrested.
I just wanted to redirect that a little bit. In what way can this be made relatable to them? So not that they wouldn't understand it, but just in a way that they can feel, because there is something about those of us who are here during the multi-party, the fight for that in '92. There's a certain emotional attachment that some of us might have because we're there and we lived through that time. So how would they better tell that story of them being, the liberation ticket in a way that relates to people who perhaps were not there at the time, understand it, know what happened, but to just draw that emotional connection that actually drives people now to the ballot to say, yes, I feel this, and yes, I relate with this?
By getting the right adults to lead the processes, getting the right role models to lead the processes, because the youth, like we were not too long ago, also learn from those who precede them. Are we setting the right examples? Or where is this narrative about, 2002 doesn't matter, or the second liberation doesn't matter? It's coming from political circles. It's coming from adult political players who are using it as for political experience, saying it doesn't matter. They can't relate with those things. And those things matter. The story of our liberation should always be taught. And I think also, other than the power of example, which is what events like now, the picking of running mates, make sure it tells a story that would make a girl, make a boy say, I would want to be there one time. And you see it elsewhere. There are figures in history who have inspired generations. Let them have the space. Let's give them space to inspire. A lot of inspiration, for example, in our sports fraternity comes from our athletes. What our athletics legends have done cannot be replicated by politicians. So if we are producing new generations of runners because of those that preceded them, it is possible that with the right narratives, with the right persons in positions of leaderships, we can actually inspire younger generations to a better future.
Hang on a second, because I want us to listen to Martha's acceptance speech and see if that was the start of something perhaps moving in the right direction. I'd like us to listen to Martha accepting the nomination and her acceptance speech, if we can listen to those two.
With utmost humility, I stand before you today to say that I, Martha Wangari Karua, do hereby proudly accept this nomination as Deputy Presidential Candidate. That I am ready to walk as your deputy and to support you in our shared ideals.
All right, so that was it, and that was that acceptance speech. So now what next? And did that then start to set the pace for what happens going forward?
See, it's not just about now. It's relating now to yesterday. That our country has not always been where it is today. There were days of repression. There were days of no democracy. There were days of very bad economy. There were days that even openly speaking, freedom of speech, freedom of association, freedom of expression were foreign things. But we've come a long way. It is always good to remind our people, and especially the young population, that things are not as they are now. Things were not as always as they were now. There are days things were a little difficult. So it's a question of reforms versus conforming. That is one of the discussions that will come up in the course of these campaigns. And you will hear it hammered heavily. Look at what has been the clarion call for Mother Karua during her tour of the Mount Kenya region the last 2 days or so. Corruption, the fight against corruption has been there. And so, just like Lena was pointing out, this will be one of the fundamental issues that will come up during this campaign. The question of reforms will come up. I mean, it was repeated by Raila Odinga himself when he was unveiling Mother Karua as the running mate, that there is some pending business in terms of reforms. But of course, the Kenya Kwanza team immediately took it up and tweaked it a little bit in terms of giving it a political touch and said, unlike our competitors, we are doing economy, they are doing constitutional reforms. Even though Mother Karua had said that whatever reforms will be made, whatever constitutional changes will be made, must be within the rule of law. Remember, not so long ago, Mother was part of the legal team that was opposing the BBI constitutional reform process through BBI. So it's a discussion out there. But more fundamentally, it's a credibility question. Is this a credible ticket? That is now for the viewers and for the voters to decide. Is it a ticket that can be trusted? Is it a safe pair of hands to run the country? That is also something that the voters will have to make a determination on. But more fundamentally, and looking at it from the perspective of the Mount Kenya region, remember, preceding the unveiling of Mother Karua as Raila's running mate, there was this discussion about Kalonzo Musyoka. Remember the Kenya Kwanza team saying, please msifanyie Kalonzo madharau, why are you not giving him a ticket? I would think it was a bait that you name Kalonzo and then the Kenya Kwanza team would land in Mount Kenya and say, where is your person here? President Uhuru Kenyatta has promised you that he's taking you somewhere, but where are you in this equation? Mother Karua went to the Mount Kenya region in the company of Peter Munya, who was also seeking the same position. And hear what they have been telling the Mount Kenya people, that you're safe in this team with us here.
Okay.
And I also think cleverly, the Azimio presidential aspirant giving that slot of agriculture to the current agriculture CS, I think it was a message of continuity, in my opinion, that some of the reforms that you've seen in tea, in coffee, here is a person who is
Will
willing to give you
continue.
the same slot
Okay.
to continue.
Okay.
As to whether that will excite the Mount Kenya region to give votes to the Azimio candidate is another. And lastly, see, President Uhuru Kenyatta has come under heavy fire from the Kenya Kwanza team. You have politicians from the region who have directly spoken about the president in not so very rosy words. But here is a running mate from the same region who, for the first time, is able to openly sell the candidature of Raila Odinga. Haven't we heard of aspirants who are vying for parliamentary, civic, and even governor seats who are kind of shy, reluctant to put the slogan or the picture
image, yeah.
of Raila Odinga? But
Right.
you see, Mother Karua has come and openly campaigned for Raila Odinga. Maybe the others will take you, but suffice to say,
Yeah.
the race is shaping up in the mountain.
It
Maybe
is.
you could just listen to Martha Karua speaking to the point that you're saying there, Francis, down there as on number 11, Karua, saying that tutakuja na heshima, because she recognized that the ground is not
Yeah.
all that welcoming.
Receptive, yeah.
Sisi tunakuja kwa kunyenyekea, tutakuelezea mpaka dakika ya mwisho, tuone ya kwamba Mlima Kenya yote iko nyuma ya Azimio.
See, that's what I was talking about. And it's a realization that the Kenya Kwanza team had made quite some heavy inroads in the Mount Kenya region. No doubt about it. So it's now Mother's attempt, as well as other politicians from the region who are supporting the candidature of Raila Odinga, now to try and get a slice of that same mountain.
Yeah, so clearly there's still quite a bit of work to be done on the ground with respect to the campaign, even though the announcement might have, given some boost and some excitement to the ticket, but there's still quite some work ahead. And there's also some work ahead for the ticket, the Kenya Kwanza ticket, that's Ruto and Rigathi, and we'll be discussing that and breaking that down, the pros and cons, what does Rigathi bring to the ticket, and what work do they need to do as well, when we take a break here on NewsGang. We'll be right back.